I agree.
all would love an ass like that. That ass, like you want. I wish I had an ass. I haven't had buttocks like that.
See, that's what's
20 odd
also.
years. His ass is amazing.
Welcome back to Foreplay. We are in film 2 of our Heist arc. After an epic discussion last week over the very serious piece of art, which is Heat, we are definitely onto something that is more in the style and less art genre of the 1999 remake of the Thomas Crown Affair by John McTiernan, a director who actually, has done quite a number of famous films. With I would say varying degrees of quality. You probably have seen Predator, Die Hard, perhaps The Hunt for Red October. These are all films that he directed. Last Action Hero, and a couple of films in 1999, both of which are guilty pleasures of mine, and I am not ashamed to admit it. The Thomas Crown Affair is a guilty pleasure of mine, and the other film he did in 1999, The 13th Warrior, is another guilty pleasure of mine. So
you want to know something, Monty?
Yeah,
I don't know if you know this detail. Probably Richard was about to spring and tell you. But the maddest thing is, when I actually looked it up, first of all, how insane is it? Because we've done some of these before where the movie's famous, but the director's name's not as famous. How is it possible, by the way, that almost no one knows the name of the guy who directed Die Hard? That is insane. Predator. I was actually shocked when I saw it. Wait, fucking hell, was that who did all these? And even worse, right? This is what happens when you go on his IMDb and you're looking through, you're like, fucking hell. But then it just stops all of a sudden. But he's still alive. Yep. And this is the detail. Yeah. Apparently, he went to prison for some sort of wiretapping case or something. And that's why he hasn't made any movies since. Because his actual resume is pretty banging, actually, yeah.
Yeah, no one will let him make movies. Because, and this is a true story, guys, he basically has been blacklisted in Hollywood because when he was making, I haven't seen this, but by all accounts, a very terrible movie called Rollerball, he hired a private investigator to illegally wiretap one of the producer's houses, got caught. Then he fucked around and lied to the FBI. So he perjured himself as well. And then eventually through kind of failed plea bargains, he ended up going to prison for a year and is now bankrupt, got divorced, out on release. No one is actually willing to fund his films anymore. So it's been a wild ride, especially for a guy who has so many kind of really famous films on his resume as a director.
Also, not exactly fitting that this is the movie we're talking about, because in this movie, a suave operator does do some potentially legal stuff, flaunts the law the whole time, gets away, you're glad he does, and at the end, it's like, joke's on you, dickhead, where's this guy? In real life, just got bodied by a barrel. So,
well, according to his Wikipedia as well, when he was doing his bit, because he ended up going down for a year, he did write a sequel to the Thomas Crown Affair, which mercifully hasn't been made. Because the one thing I can say is because he did do what the fuck is it called?
Hey, imagine actually turning into the guy
Warrior in 99.
The one you turn to and you're like, "What are you in for?" And he's like, "Well, I actually directed Predator and Die Hard, but I'm in for White Top." Like, what? Exactly. I know.
Yeah. I'm in here for Rollerball, which
that would be the back line exactly. Yeah. Rollerball,
which isn't even necessarily a lie.
No, I don't.
Right. So, but look. The one good thing I can say about this movie is it wasn't the worst movie he made in 1999, because the 13th Warrior is
I love the 13th Warrior.
Yeah, well, listen, what I've learned doing this podcast is that it does seem to be the case that taste isn't linked to intelligence in any way, shape, or form, because I know you to be an intelligent person. I suspect Roger Ebert, our fifth Beatle, so to speak, was an intelligent person.
By the way, shout out to the fact that a running theme of this show has been banging on dead Roger Ebert.
Bro, think about what we're going to be able to do with AI in about 20 episodes time or something. He's coming on for the Christmas special next year. That's happening.
Yeah,
hey, cool story, bro.
There's a reason why I classified this as a guilty pleasure, Richard. It's not because I think this is a seminal film. I do not.
Feel guilty.
I just enjoy it.
guilty pleasures are meant to be enjoyed alone. You don't make your friends come.
Yeah, that's the weirdest part I don't get, Monty, is that he's nailed it right there. He's actually put the lens on, because as he says, right, look, if you want to get around, Monty, when no one else is around, and you have, you know, the kids are away with someone else, like, you just have the house to yourself. If you want to, like, dim the lights, light a bunch of candles, get out a fucking old Barney tape and have a goon session for fun. Do it if you want, but don't invite us. Don't go turn up at 8. It starts to chafe at about 8:30. Like, mate, that's where it gets weird. I agree with Richard. Do what you want. Do your shit yourself.
By the
don't
way,
tell us to go.
it's not just the two of you. I forced thousands of other people to also watch this.
It's even more egregious. What sort of exhibition is this?
It is a fetish then. Brilliant.
I know. I think he's even going like, I'm not really enjoying this. It's just I'm ironically enjoying it. Oh, yes,
I'm not ironically enjoying it. I genuinely enjoy it, but I also recognize it's bad. Look, I've said this about my own handle of MonteCristo. I was a literature major.
True.
It's not that I think Dumas is the best writer of all time. It's just because I enjoy the Count of Monte Cristo. Like, I enjoy the Three Musketeers. I enjoy these kind of pulpy action, pop culture pieces from the 19th century. I like him a lot better, than certain other authors of that period, but I wouldn't put him up against, like, Moby Dick, which I recognize to be a significantly more important work of literature, right? I can distinguish between the two things. But sometimes when you just want a stylish adventure piece, The Count of Monte Cristo is a fucking good book. And it does have some themes, but was it something that was a serialized publication that was meant to, be put in the shit rags that everybody read and it was all anybody talked about that week? Yes, because that's exactly what it was supposed to be. It was mass media entertainment. And so I don't have an issue with that. And there are certain things that I love about this movie. First off, Pierce Brosnan is in the middle of, like, the apex of Pierce Brosnan's career. He's like in the middle of his Bond run right now. I think he's fucking great in this movie. I think he is so, like, effortlessly cool in this film and plays such a really fun and stylish and compelling character that it really makes a lot of the movie for
as
me.
well.
Fantastic ass. He was great naked.
Yeah, I mean, not gonna lie, like, he actually did. I thought by 1999 we'd given up on the trope of here's a ray of moonlight just fucking bouncing off someone's chiseled wooden ass like they haven't drank water for 3 days. Like, are we still doing that in 99? Are we, John McTiernan? Like, what the fuck? So yeah, fair enough. Pierce Brosnan is hot as fuck in this film, which is fair. Like, that's fair.
Yeah, and I think he plays this part with a lot of charisma and really compellingly. And I think that the underlying premise of this film is just really fun. Like, the concept of it, that you have this ostensibly 100-millionaire, billionaire finance king who is at heart kind of a thrill seeker and is trying to get more out of life than just being another suit is an interesting premise. And the fact that it deals with high art and high art theft, and it's so beautifully shot in New York City too. Like, all the shots of the Met are just stunning. I lived in New York, so it really does make me feel nostalgic for the the Met and the other parts of the kind of the Upper East Side and the city where this takes place. It's a great simple heist film that has a very unsatisfying romance attached to it.
And this is that concludes all the good things you can say about the film.
This is what's funny though, Monty, is like, first of all, I'll put my cards on the table. I'm actually slightly annoyed because, you know what, Richard, I thought I was going to really destroy this film, but it wasn't actually as bad as I thought it was. I think the problem is, obviously I watched it when it came out, so I think I would be like 18 at the time. I remember it was okay at the time. I like Pierce Brosnan. I thought it was an all right movie, but I didn't remember it being anything like worth remembering or whatever. But it actually was better when I rewatched it. There are parts I do think are a little bit ropey, but the joke is, it's funny Monty framed it that way, because I actually think my conclusion of the film's maybe very different then, because to me, the entire premise of the movie is just about men and women and relationships that they have, and like concepts like who has leverage in a relationship and the push and pull of when you initially are meeting someone and you chase them and then they withdraw and then you pursue and then you withdraw and they pursue and you have the cat and mouse back and forth. Like, essentially, the joke is, I'd actually make even though I can see why there's definitely some aspects. I told you I'm not the biggest Rene Russo fan, but there's some parts we'll get into. There's parts that don't necessarily hold together that well, and definitely, by the way, come off. Here's the bad part. Some of it doesn't age well. in a sense that, you know how like 80s cheese somehow now has become almost like vintage and has like an aesthetic to it that you can enjoy, vaporwave, people will know. This almost has like cringe that hasn't either matured or it just doesn't translate. Like a quick obvious example is the first heist in the film, the music for that would be in like a comedy fucking like
I am so glad you said the music.
That would be in like a Nicolas Cage Con Air type movie, mate. That music is like, again, that felt like you think you're in 1983 or something. Like, mate, this is 1999. You're making this film. This isn't some cheesy movie. You're trying to actually do like a serious scene. So there were certain aspects I thought were very cheesy. To me, though, we'll get to it later. I think the whole thing I want to talk about is actually that whole like relationship aspects. I've got some interesting takes there. But yeah, let's get into it. Because the thing is, I agree with you, Monty. I can see like we made all the point. The director obviously has skill and he knows what he's doing with the camera and stuff. But that was one thing I thought was weird about this film, though, is it could have been either a really serious action film. It could have been a really serious, actually like emotional film about like relationships and character acting. But it chooses this weird middle ground where it's trying to have all this levity. It's trying to even be, like I say, almost like a cheesy, like almost like they're intentionally making it like slightly silly and suspension of disbelief. But then it's also trying to, like, on some level, earn some like respect or integrity. I felt like I didn't know what tone the movie was trying to get.
So I think in regard to the music, like a lot of it is kind of like more jazzy, the soundtrack, and it intentionally like lays it on pretty heavy. And for me, it's very reminiscent of like the 60s Rat Pack films that were heists, like the original Ocean's 11, because those incorporate music very heavily, or they have, you know, Sammy Davis Jr. in the original Ocean's 11, like singing that song EO 11 or whatever, right? And so I think that it was trying to call back to that, but using more like contemporary jazz, and I didn't really agree with that angle of it. But it is, I mean, the soundtrack is inescapable, and sometimes it doesn't work. I think personally, I'm a big fan of the Nina Simone song that they use at the end when they're
that song. I want the one when all those like the fake Romanians are like drilling in and stuff, and it's like it's actually like some like heavy metal from the 80s, like
but here's the fundamental problem with that. It's not even that the music selection is bad. It's the way that it is layered in the movie. It's really jarring because they're using a soundtrack, but they're trying to present it almost diegetically. So it's when they're doing the heist bit, it's like heist things happening, but then it cuts back to like Pierce Brosnan, and the music just immediately stops, doesn't fade out, doesn't go quiet. They haven't skillfully took a little reprise and just done a no. It just hard stops.
It's also that the music
talking, and then it cuts back. And I was like, and it goes on for like 12 minutes. And
I was thinking on that scene, is this supposed to be like a comedy scene? Because I was thinking it was supposed to be presented as serious initially. But, you know, that scene alone is just not a great one.
I think
the entire music and sound design in this movie is dreadful. I mean, really, really bad. Like, actually terrible.
It's also that, and I think you'll notice this when you watch the movie, is that the soundtrack sounds like it's just covering up everything else. Like it's not just there, it's in front of absolutely everything, to the point it's actually legitimately distracting to what you're watching at times. Even when I agree with some of the song choices, it's like too forceful, even when the song
Monty,
is good.
The problem here is this might just be like, you know, one of those cultural idiosyncrasies. But the problem is, even though I actually do think that even specific performance by Nina Simone of that song is a banger song, and it even's not badly used. The problem is, Monty, I'm not joking. You could literally take any of the scenes where he's being suave with that song on, and that could just be like a commercial in Britain for like a dad's like, here's the new Audi. Aren't you looking fucking slick picking him up from school or something? Like, it just has that thing where it's like, it's a little bit, it's almost like too obvious that sort of song to pick for that, you know, like you just slapping me in the face like, oh, he's all suave and like sort of sophisticated. You give me too much, you get it on too thick, you know.
I think you actually hit the nail on the head, is that the music in this sounds like a commercial. The music is so upfront, like it would be in a commercial. I think that's actually it. That just really clicked for me, what you said in terms of describing how the sound design works in this film. And I think that is ultimately kind of unsuccessful, which is a bummer.
It's weird. The thing I've been hinting at, which I've just got a bunch on we can do later, but I want to get through like the premise and we'll do all the usual stuff, is like if you look at the actual like relationship aspects and what it might say about men and women and different things about the era, etc. Dude, if that was like a European film, that would just be treated so seriously and would actually be at the heart of the film. Whereas that's what I mean about it being tonally weird, Monty. I can't tell if it's supposed to be Ocean's 11 or we're just having fun with it. It's just whatever. You're on a fucking silly roller coaster with famous actors, or are they actually trying to make some sort of like really deep, meaningful point about like human relationships and, you know, like the idea of like the chase and what happens when you get what you want and what would you do next, and also things like if you already had everything, would things like flouting the law or society, which obviously they allude to in the intro part, even though people forget that, would these things even be interesting? By the way, one thing I will throw in there though, even though sadly I actually wish I'd prepared more for this, because what I should obviously have done is go watch the original Thomas Crown Affair, which I actually haven't seen. But I will say one detail that I did think was cool was, if you don't know, the reason they start with that therapist is that was Faye Dunaway was the woman from the original. So that's just like a clever like sort of nod to that in a way, you know.
Yeah. So I guess before we go to the premise, so the original movie was from the 60s, guys. It starred Faye Dunaway and Steve McQueen. The premise is very similar, where Steve McQueen is the one who is doing a heist. In this case, it is a heist of a bank, which is much more boring. And honestly, the original movie's okay, you know, but it's not like, oh, they remade a super good movie and made it worse. Like, they're both mediocre movies in the end. I prefer this version because I think the art heist is significantly more interesting. But I will say that the Faye Dunaway, Steve McQueen relationship had more sparks to it in this one. And I think, you know, Rene Russo, we'll talk about that. Maybe not the best casting choice for this. And I think she wasn't terrible, but I think you could have found somebody who would really have popped with Pierce Brosnan, because Pierce Brosnan kind of just acts all over her in this movie. And, you know, it's kind of you don't get a lot of thrills from it. It just feels like Pierce Brosnan is the very charismatic one and Rene Russo is just kind of there. Anyway, the premise of this film is that Pierce Brosnan stars as Thomas Crown, the titular man, and he is a billionaire finance guy in New York City, the CEO of what is it, Crown Enterprises? I forget the exact.
It's acquisitions, I think it is.
Crown Acquisitions. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Just sit on the pencil at the end, remember?
Yeah. And so he is at the beginning of the film visiting the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which
hold it in.
All
keep
right.
going, Monty. Keep going.
So he is visiting the Metropolitan Museum of Art. He's in their Impressionist wing, and he's looking at a picture of Van Gogh haystacks. Okay. And in this room is a very important Claude Monet painting, who is kind of the father of Impressionism, of Venice, a sunset that's happening in Venice. This painting is the one that's worth the most in this room. And they very, very like ham-handedly make you know that it's the most valuable painting in the room, because he's the guy, the docent's like, which is very weird for a docent to say, like, why don't you like the more expensive painting better? That doesn't really seem like something a docent would say. They would talk to you about.
It's absurd. It's absurd dialogue. Absolutely. What, you enjoying this picture? Why not look at that one? It's worth more money, you daft cunt. What are you talking about? You're actually working in that gallery, I know.
Do you know what it's worth? I just like my haystacks, Bobby.
Which is like, the docent would probably talk to you about Van Gogh, or like why you appreciate it, or give you information about it if you've ever been in these museums.
Shout out 90s American culture, where what they do also is have someone in sort of like a fucking like role of a teacher teaching children on a tour, and they're like, I'm sure you're bored by this, but I tell you what's worth $100 million, isn't it, bitches? Like, what? As if you tell that again, children, all we should value in the world is pure monetary wealth. What are you talking about?
Okay, try this. It's worth $100 million.
Because as you say, these are just awkward ways of telling you, this is the picture worth $100 million that he's going to steal. But anyway, yeah, maybe you don't get that at the beginning of the movie, guys. Maybe you're thrown off by that.
There's some really terrible dialogue to set all of this up. Really terrible. Anyway, he leaves, and then you find out that there is a shipment into the Met. And of course, they're expecting a sarcophagus, but really, as it says on the card that they receive, it is a
Ah.
Greco-Asian horse, which if you don't know, guys,
I need to be fucking like strapped down for this, which I can't not say. So like I can't even believe they did an actual shit Trojan horse. Literally.
Bro, I have been keeping it in. I am keeping it in, mate. I'm just let Monty do his bit.
What's sad is what's
coming.
I wish I hadn't actually given that sort of disclaimer, because the more you talk about it, I'm actually starting to hate this film. It's like I was too forgiving when it's like maybe the end of that was just all right, but now you're making me hate him. Keep going.
All right,
This is only like 5 minutes into the film so far, guys. Keep
yeah,
going.
not even like 3 minutes into the film, maybe. So it says Greco-Asian horse, which is obviously hilarious because Troy, the city, was in Asia Minor in Turkey. So it is actually a Trojan horse is actually a Greco-Asian horse. And then, of course, later on, the detective who's played by Dennis Leary is like, it was an actual Trojan horse, as if we needed to spell it out, guys. As if everybody who's watching this film is so dumb that they can't understand that a literal, like when I say literal, a literal Greco-Asian Trojan horse. It is a literal Trojan horse with dudes inside of it. So they deliver this horse. They're, surprise, there's a bunch of Eastern European dudes inside of it who break out and then go through this complex heist where they like disable the air conditioning system. Then they dress as docents and like clear out the room. And they have a helicopter coming in so they can start stealing some of these paintings from the Met. But we find out later that it was all actually a ruse by Thomas Crown, who hired these guys to be a distraction, basically, whereas he planted this briefcase and like stops the security door from closing with it, manages to like steal the painting and just walk out with it. So he's in possession of this Monet now. Enter Rene Russo, and her character's name is Catherine Banning. And most importantly, she is an insurance investigator. So basically, most of this movie is now a cat and mouse game between the insurance investigator and the police, most notably Dennis Leary, who's the detective that she's working with, the lead detective on the case. And they are working together to try and figure out who did this. Catherine Banning knows or has a strong intuition that it actually was Thomas Crown, but it's very difficult to prove this. So she enters into kind of a seduction relationship with him to get inside of his house to start looking for this painting. She eventually finds the painting, but it turns out just to be a copy that he made and is kind of like playing a joke on her. So the meat of this story is not actually this heist. It's them definitely being attracted to each other, playing this cat and mouse game, not even knowing. It's will they, won't they? Not even really knowing if they actually, what the result is going to be, because Thomas Crown eventually is like, come with me. And she's like, no, do you really want me to leave with you? And not believing that it's real. And then they end up on a plane at the end. At the end, guys, spoiler, he had actually the twist, which is dumb and full of plot holes, and we'll get to it, but is stylishly cool, even though it doesn't logically make sense, is that he had his forger paint a different painting over the top, lent it to the Met, and then he goes through a sequence at the end where he basically causes the sprinklers to trigger within the Met, which then wash the top painting away, revealing that the Monet was like back in its place from just a couple days after the robbery. Now, clearly, this is dumb because everybody would instantly know it was him.
He even intentionally puts a pencil in there to show it was him who did it all.
Yeah.
The logic for real that the police fucking character suggests is sort of like, well, it's only a few days after he stole it, so what can we do? Like, what are you even saying? Like, did the guy write in the script? Like, they have to turn it in 5 minutes after this? What are you talking about? Like, I know. Wait. I'll back out. Just finish the premise, Monty.
So at the end, it does end on a nebulous note about their relationship where they end up on a plane together and they're kissing, but it's not really resolved as to how like real their relationship is or how lasting it's going to be, or if it was just a fling, because it was, erotic to be in this situation where they were attempting
It's
to
not
fool
attention,
each
obviously,
other.
you know.
Yeah,
There's
mega
actually an
sexual
element to be
tension.
fair. Like, that would be what would make it exciting, isn't it? Like, they're
Oh,
also
yeah.
trying to catch each other. By the way, now I actually realised that within just the time we've been doing this episode, I'm full circle again. I hate this movie again. Because I even, as just someone who's travelled a lot, despised the idea that the fucking hostess would see you jump over a chair, start making out with someone, and just go like, oh, that's sweet, and just walk away. Like,
was
no,
the
the air
90s.
hostess would be an absolute annoying wanker and tell you, like, go back to your seat, please, sir. We'll just put the seatbelt side. Like, they would never let you do that. So even that actually tilts me now. I think about being on too many planes, mate. They never do that. They're all arseholes. They never let you just do that human emotion. Oh, there's so much in this film. Like, first of all, let's just start, right? Because there's going to be a laundry list, this motherfucker. So here's a few that I've got for you. First of all, the beginning of the movie is so fucking insulting to your intelligence, Monty, right? So it starts, and as you say, the fucking guy who's the security basically comes up to him, and then they're just sort of telling you in really ridiculous concept, like he's just essentially sort of going, oh, what's that? Am I every day in this place, but not looking at the painty I'm going to steal? In fact, that's not even my favorite one. My favorite one is this one over here. It's like, what is this, like a kids movie or something? What are you talking about? And then, as we say, the tour has to come around. This one, of course, worth $100 million. Like, mate, you're making this way too obvious what's going to happen. Like, you may as well just have a massive sign. He's going to steal this one here. But the idea, even that idea, is actually childish as fuck, by the way. The idea that because he goes to these fucking this place a lot and looks at a different picture, that puts him beyond suspicion. It's like such an insanely childish plot premise. I can't even conceive of it. Then there is the whole thing of their like Thomas Crown acquisitions, right? This may as well be a scene out of fucking like any of those cheesy TV shows, fucking Entourage, Billions, because it's essentially like people who don't understand finance and big business all think it's a big poker game like that. Like, huh? Oh, I can't believe it. We got him. Thomas Crown just sold something. Yeah, dickheads, for $30 million more than you were supposed to. Oh, he's done it again.
Figured out what you're going to say to your board when they learned that you paid me $30 million more than others were offering. Good morning, gentlemen.
By the way, that just makes those meetings seem so much more exciting than they ever are. And also that notion that you're just like they're not even aware of what it's been. Oh my God, we tricked him. I tricked you, though. It's like a bad anime fucking Uno reverse card, mate. What is that shit? So I'm already like, fucking hell. If this is how they're trying to show me he's incredibly intelligent, nuanced, sophisticated, and has like a plot. This is essentially, here's my joke. This is like someone who writes fucking Nicolas Cage cheesy action films thought he could write a Christopher Nolan fucking like Inception type film. And it's like, this is my magnum opus. It's like, you haven't got the skill for that, mate. Stick to what your chops are for, because when you try to be too clever, there's actually a saying in England, they say you're never as stupid as when you try to be smart, because when you try to like pretend to be more than you are is when you're going to fuck up completely. And then also, I'll just throw this in there, right? Here's why this is the worst part of this movie, Monty, is this concept here, right? Aside from the very premise of what they let the main suspect do at all times while essentially, wink, wink, flaunting it in your face, that's already mad. But the madder part is the character of Rene Russo's character. What's her name? Jane Banning. Was it Jane?
Catherine Banning.
Catherine Banning, there you go. Right, this character, what's hilarious is, the first character you should think is totally implausible is the Thomas Crown one. No. Thomas Crown character is plausible compared to the Catherine Banning one. So the Catherine Banning one is herself some like superpower fantasy girl boss of a woman who is just beautiful, rich, totally independent, but was like mentored by someone, essentially has all the sort of like, you know, skill set to go head to head with this guy who
And is a badass bounty hunter.
Who has some ludicrous power fantasy of like a finance bro who can just do anything he wants. He's just God in the world because no one could catch him, right? She is supposed to be his equivalent, but this is the most insane part of the... Well, not only one, would that character never exist. It doesn't even make sense that it would exist. But even worse, the idea that when she's brought into a police investigation, they just let her just run roughshod over the whole thing, doing whatever she wants all the time. Even though, by the way, she makes it very clear, like a quarter of the way in the movie, she doesn't even care about the police aspect of it. She's only there for the painting. She's not even part of law enforcement.
So, are the laws of the United States completely unknown to you? Or is it because you've been living in fucking Morocco
Monaco.
or Mogambo? I don't give a shit, okay? It's illegal entry, theft, trespassing.
I'm not a cop.
No, you're not a cop, because if you were a cop, you'd know that this won't hold up. Don't you want him
My
to work
job
for?
is the painting.
And they let her, by the way, basically take 1 million chances. And the weirdest part is the shit explanation for why she's allowed to is because bizarrely, I have no idea. Someone must have owed this guy money. For some reason, Dennis Leary's in this film. I don't even know why, because he's not even playing Dennis Leary, the famous character he stole from Bill Hicks, his fake pretend version of his stand-up.
We're getting to that.
He's not even doing any comedy. He's just there as like a New York everyman. And his whole thing is he's essentially the fucking cock character who just enables all this just because he sort of likes her a bit and he had a bad relationship. And then so ergo, it's fine. Like that's the weirdest part of the movie. It's not even how outrageous the heist is or the dynamic. It's like, I don't even get what they were trying to do with this insurance aspect, because they treat it like basically she's like a super fed, but she isn't. She's just some civilian who's a fucking like insurance person to get the painting back. That part alone, by the way, is the part that I kept having real problems with, because I would keep having parts of the movie where I'd be like, but why would they just let her back in the office after she just slept with him and implied she might live? Why would they let her back in and then show her all like confidential documents? Like that part was fucking with me. That part was sort of taking me out the film. The rest of it's neither here or there, but that part was fucking with me. I couldn't handle that. That part's so stupid as a premise, you know. I think you could write it so much better. Like I said, just make her a fed, make her like a super fed, and then if anything, she just has to leave there. Because remember, you have to go on the road anyway. I actually think the insurance part was the stupidest angle of it, you know.
It was from the original. I agree. I think they could have changed that part of it where she wasn't a bounty hunter. But just for a laugh, I will say that Kurt Wimmer, one of the screenwriters for this, had such other gems such as Sphere, which is a terrible movie about from a decent Michael Crichton book.
It's got some good performances.
Equilibrium, which is hilariously cheesy.
Equilibrium is just a bad rip-off of Fahrenheit 451.
Yes.
But okay, yeah, true. At least that's Chrissy Nailing. It's the one where he chops the guy in half with that sword.
Gun fu.
Gun kata.
Yeah, the gun
which is some shit games character or something, true. Yeah.
And you guys will love this. The remake of Total Recall, he wrote.
Okay.
And
well, it's fucking bold, this character, isn't it? He's like, you know what? I might take a crack at Total Recall. This guy's got fucking hubris, hasn't he? I know.
I didn't even know they remade this movie, but there was apparently a 2015 remake of Point Break that he also wrote.
Holy
yes, there was. Yeah. I didn't know he was responsible, but I knew they remade it.
So let's just put this out there that this guy may be a cinematic terrorist when it comes to
hacky Monty, you know, just a tad.
Anyway, Richard.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm ready. I'm coming in, guys. Right? I'm off the top rope on this one. So I want to just start by saying I didn't know Dennis Leary was in this movie. If I knew Dennis Leary was in this movie, I'd have tried everything to veto it, because I fucking despise
Dennis Leary.
Guy.
How do you feel about it? Let's despise him.
Dennis Leary is proof that everything Cat Williams says is true, in the sense that Satan's children can't create anything of their own, and B, they're probably his career can only be explained by a satanic cabal.
Oh, sure.
Where you fucking worship Moloch and then you give it, because there's no justice in the world. For those who don't know, Dennis Leary was a shit Boston stand-up comedian that wasn't really doing anything. He used to get up on stage and, you know, he'd rattle through. It was petty grievances, essentially, was the theme of his material. And then, you know, comedy at that time in the early 90s and late 80s was kind of going through a renaissance. You had, like, you know, the bad boy, you know, comedians, most notably, you know, Sam Kinison and Bill Hicks. And fucking Dennis Leary ripped them both off shamelessly. He took elements of Kinison's screaming delivery, Bill Hicks chain smoking, leather jacket persona of his early careers. Obviously, when he got pancreatic cancer and I think just prior to it, he quit. And then he just robbed his entire act. I mean, his 1993 comedy special, No Cure for Cancer,
absurd,
is just... It's just Bill Hicks's material stripped of any intelligence and wit. And Bill Hicks knew Dennis Leary. Bill Hicks is like a hero of mine, obviously. Made me want to be a stand-up comedian, and I still think the sad thing is, because he died so young and it was sort of so long ago, pre-internet, he constantly starts to slip in the world rankings of all-time great comedians. He's being more and more forgotten as time goes by, and I'm telling you, like, you know, Revelations is fucking still one of the best comedy specials, I think.
I love Bill Hicks so much. I even tried in esports calling out the character he became later, and I got fucking in trouble for it, so lesson learned there. It's a little bit of an Easter egg for the fans there.
Yeah. So I mean, look. So Dennis Leary. This is how you know there isn't any sort of karmic force, curating and protecting the universe, because Dennis Leary stole an entire man's career, an entire man's persona, quite openly. Everyone called him out about it at the time. Bill Hicks even said in an interview that the real funny part is I stole Dennis Leary's act, but I just cleaned it up and added punchlines. That's
and said it before him, or the joke was.
Yeah, and did it before him. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, key detail. So anyway, Dennis Leary went on to be on MTV, and his entire shtick was, I just talk really fast while I'm smoking a cigarette about how Americans are big, fat, dumb, and stupid, but I like big, fat, dumb, and stupid things. He was like the Micro Machines guy. He says absolutely nothing of any value. Yes. He's garbage. He's human garbage. Remember, he literally has stolen someone else's, not just like a joke or a bit of material, a whole act and an entire persona.
Everything, the aesthetic, everything, yeah.
And then it somehow snowballed this into a career. And having to watch this cunt mug it up in a fucking movie made me sick to my stomach. I wanted to smash my TV to pieces every time he was on the screen.
Because they're trying to make him, like I say it, like the insert for you in the likable character.
That's what I mean. They're like, I'm the Dennis Leary character. What's two fantastical characters like Florida or whatever? Like, no, fuck you. Fuck Dennis Leary forever. Fuck him forever, right? So anyway, so there was that. That was problem number one I had with the film.
All right, so we're coming in super biased. No bias here.
What's good, buddy, is we've got the most idiosyncratic things that piss us off.
I present to you that is not bias. It is objective scientific fact that Dennis Leary is a plagiarist hack, right? And as soon as his comedy special, No Cure for Cancer, got a little bit of virality or whatever you want to fucking call it, he went and did just a ton of shit hacky movies that year.
Movies. Yeah,
he was that annoying cunt in Demolition Man who lives in the sewers. I want to eat rat burgers because I'm an American, and I wanted to doing his MTV bit. He was in Loaded Weapon. Remember that? The Lethal Weapon parody that they did. He was in fucking Judgment Night playing a bad guy that you're supposed to be really frightened. He's a cunt.
I know, it's so plausible, isn't it?
Fuck Dennis Leary. It's scientific fact. It's not bias. If
By the
you're
way,
repulsed
I'm
by
in this
Dennis
sense
Leary,
as well,
it's just a normal, healthy reaction to
the other thing is, at least in this film, he is just like a black cipher for the fucking YouTube fill-in.
He's not offensively bad. He's just there in this movie,
here's the difference. I agree with Richard, though. The way he was used in Hollywood was criminal, because the worst thing was they always act like that character in Judgment Night. They always try to make it like he's cool and edgy, and it's like, I'm not buying this at all. Like, what? And you're just supposed to accept that he's some sort of swagged out guy. Whereas, like, as I say, when you know it's kind of a facade, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Obviously, in this movie, he's just a fucking idiot.
Key to that type of persona is authenticity. There's nothing authentic about Dennis Leary. So, I mean, anyway, problem number one. I will say, by the way, I do like Frankie Faison, and it's always good to see him in a film, love him in The Wire. So, good. People forget he did a bunch of movies. Whenever you needed some senior law enforcement person that could flip between irate or fatherly, he was your go-to guy. Love Frankie's work. Great dude. Next thing with this movie, I think there was a kernel of an intelligent script in here, but because, John McTiernan was kind of involved in it, and the hacky writer, somewhere along the line it became this, right? What was supposed to be happening was the cat and mouse of stealing the painting was a parallel to the relationships, and that's the framing device with the therapist at the start. And it's meant to be like, it's like sometimes, when you're having to do this and cloak your emotions, and in the same way you're having to cloak your intentions, although as Duncan points out, he just may as well have literally held up a sign, I'm robbing that painting. It's so ridiculous.
Richard, what I love about this movie is the other plot hole, which is that, remember that the air conditioning goes off because they're using the infrared cameras, masks the ceiling of the painting. Yeah. So they go back and they're like, okay, let's look at the bench. Oh, there's 3 legs in the morning, but there's only 2 legs. Suspicious. But do they ever rewind it slightly further to when he's sitting there and then puts the briefcase underneath that is the 3rd leg? You could solve this mystery instantly.
The text just wasn't there, obviously. Dennis Leary was too busy looking at fucking Rene Russo going, man, she's such a hot bounty hunting babe. That's what you're supposed to think.
Basically, Dennis Leary's character's just like, yes, slay queen, slay, but about 20 years early. That's all his character does.
Imagine a heist movie where, you know, the heist, the real heist is almost stealing the love of the other person.
Yes.
Could have been interesting. Instead, it was
could have been a banger. Like I say, Richard, this was like a European art house movie. It could have been a banger, this, actually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. And I'll say this. I don't think I've ever seen a film where the premise is the two leads being in this, I love him, but I got to get him. Ooh, but I love her, but she's going to get me. Right? No chemistry. Like, zero chemistry. Like, even when they're fooling around, fucking inexplicably naked.
Genuinely, I actually really wish, like core stream style, Monty, I could just have watched Richard when I could just see him like a hidden camera, him watching that scene where she does like the dancing with the sexy dress up against him. Right, I would actually pay to see and have like a blood fucking like pressure meter or something like that.
Bro, it was bad. I was getting dizzy, mate. It was fucking. I just can't believe it. There's zero chemistry between these leads. Zero.
There's so much nudity.
And you also have to understand. By the way, this is aged terribly with recent lawsuit decisions. John McTiernan changed elements of the script to base Pierce Brosnan on Trump. Right? He was meant to be like. He was meant to be like a young playboy with his name on a building. Could have any women he wants.
Right.
I'm sorry to say it, Rene. Like, you've been in some movies that were okay, right? You're not Hollywood royalty, so I'm just say it. Pierce Brosnan at this moment in time is so far out of your league. This film insults my basic intelligence.
Yep.
And it's like, listen, I get it. Horses for courses. Everyone has different tastes and everything. But you could have sold it to me if they'd had any chemistry, then that wouldn't be just present in your face. But zero chemistry, and I'm just thinking, right, Pierce Brosnan's one of the world's wealthiest men, clearly one of the world's smartest. He's everything I want to be. And
exactly.
You know, right? And yet he settled on Rene Russo, who just happens to be a fucking bounty hunter who's investigating him for a heist he absolutely definitely did. Fuck this film. So I was
to the credit about he absolutely did it. They realized, I mean, Rene Russo realizes that he obviously did it very early on in the film. It's not, I don't think it's presented as such a difficult case to crack. The problem is actually just getting the evidence they need.
There is zero reticence on her part about getting into bed with him. This is the other aspect of it. You don't, you've talked about tone. Let's talk about pacing. I say this a lot, right? Like, I flit between genres and like a critical butterfly. I can appreciate everything. A film's intent and artist's intent is super important. But one thing that is criminal that you must not be allowed to get away with is not respecting your audience's time, because they are choosing to be there to experience your art piece. So everything has to have meaning. And the best movies do that. We talked about Heat last week, right? A 3-hour-long movie that feels like 30 minutes because it respects your time.
Yes.
Everything happens for a reason. It keeps moving along at a brisk pace, and everything is excellent. Everything is perfect. It's 45 minutes into a excruciating 2-hour runtime before they're even flirting with each other. Why? Why am I waiting for this? Like, that's the premise of the movie. You got to get me in there quicker. You can't have 12 minutes. I understand if the heist was like the fucking Heat bank robbery scene, but the heist isn't even that good. It's just some dickheads in an aircon unit going, yeah, come on now. Come on, Dimitri. Let's take this.
By the way, I'll just throw this out there. It's normally, I always say, Monty, if I like a film, you can forgive a lot of the plot holes. But like, also, part of this genius plan was to tell people who have worked at this gallery for decades, just call up and then have a guy in a Russian accent. No, this is administration. You go out of room now. Like, that's really their plan. Like,
hey, they want to talk to you upstairs.
Me? Or the regular proctor, because McKinley will be back in just a couple of seconds.
I think you should talk to them.
Also, 50. It's about 55 minutes before they even introduce the motif that is meant to be key to the whole denouement of the fucking movie, which is the bowler hat. He's not even in a bowler hat in the opening scene.
Yeah.
So, like, guys, I'm sorry. Like, you're presenting this based on the fact they look at that Magritte painting, The Son of Man, quite a famous one.
Yep.
I happen to like Magritte. I think he's a great artist. You know, but like, just to show I'm not uncultured. It's not like, oh, it's a movie about art and Richard's troglodyte brain can't handle it, right? But like, if you're going to make the bowler hat the motif and have all the duplicates and stuff where he disappears into the crowd, maybe do that instead of him going, that's my favorite painting. I would never steal that one. Like, but you know, like, instead of doing all of that shit, why not introduce the bowler hat as a motif earlier? Why not have him going on a water? It's just all over the place.
Even have foreshadowed it. You could have had him in the opening scene in a bowler hat, and then instead of talking about the painting,
eating an apple,
that guy says something to him like, "Oh, unusual choice of hat, sir." And then he says something like, "Yeah, makes me stand out in a crowd or something." By the way, I've just literally written a way better script than this guy did. That would be a banger. Then that was foreshadowed. Yeah,
I feel like we do this all the time. We should become script doctors. That's what this podcast should evolve into, I think.
At the end, I've got another one of my classic ones where I've got a Thorin's director's cut better ending. Do you want that? Shall I do it now? Shall I tell you what it is?
Yeah, go on. While we're there.
What the worst part about this film is actually what they expect you to accept as the ending. Because they set it up, right? Here's what doesn't work also about the pacing. The pacing of the movie essentially is this, right? You love Thomas Crown, but in general, you're not really getting to just see him and his. You're seeing the movie really from the Rene Russo character's POV. She's basically tying the movie and you're following her through it, right? So a lot of it, this is part of how they're tricking you, is they're even doing the trick against you. Now, what is, I'll give them credit. They are doing the Raymond Chandler, which is they don't lie to you. Like, they don't have him go, this isn't my girlfriend, and it's that woman he's like raised to a kid. No, what they do is you saw what she saw, which is you saw like an unfortunate contextual timing of it, and then you assumed something like she did, and later on you find out it isn't, right? So the premise of the movie is going like this, Monty. It's a relationship between two people where there's obviously constant fraught danger. That's even part of the thrill of the relationship and the chase, the electricity, and there's this whole crime element involved, as well as the fact that they can't trust people, and they're superpower players, and they're the most wanted people, and then also they're sort of battling each other instead of being like a lesser in the relationship. There's all that going on, and then basically at the end what you want an interesting way to resolve the tension of the back and forth. So it's like, she does love him, he does like it all, but maybe he's playing her because he wants to get away with it, and then he wants to get away with the stuff, and maybe he's even doing that to flirt, right? At the end, right, the ending just is, you think there's a sick twist, which is, oh, he actually did trick her after all. The whole thing was a giant trick, but it was all just on her. And instead at the end, because he's referenced that Scottish thing, it's like, ah, wee lassie, what are you crying for? Like, and then you just have that, right? The actual better ending for real to this film is that she just cries on the plane and it cuts to the credits. And the movie actually was about the fact that either this guy was just playing a massive game, because remember, you're supposed to actually believe on the insurance side, like the painting thing at the end with the water, he was from day one planning the whole thing. It was like some Inception level plot. So I actually think the movie is better if the message of the movie basically is about people who can't trust others and have to see them transactionally and have to use them. And the fact that at the end, his character wouldn't actually be a lovely guy and go with you at the end. Like, because that was the other premise, is like, aside from thrills, what he really just does, like bank robbery level stuff, but for the lols, and he doesn't even want the money or the thing. Like that part already is having a hard time holding up with the movie, but you're accepting it because you want to watch the heists. At the end, I actually think the film's just a way better film. If it ends on a downer, if it's actually that he actually did fuck her over, and in the end, her mistake as the insurance person was to trust like that it was love, basically, because the genius of the movie then would become, you could say in a traditional setting, people would imply it's men that get trapped by the woman, or their love makes them blinded to everything. But this would be the one time where she was blinded, that he got into her blind spot. He did get into her feelings, because they were trying to tease that the whole time in the film. It was always there, just under the surface. They make it slightly overt with the therapist. But I actually thought that was actually the more interesting meat and potatoes of the film, and they didn't go enough into it for me. Like, I actually thought that essentially he could have actually ended on a really emotional, sort of like fucked up ending, like, holy shit. So he was just tricking a bit. But they just did the happy ending at the end.
45 minutes jerking off, and then it's like you said, what's interesting about the film would have been the interplay between these two roles, and we barely get any of it. It's really unsatisfying.
Yeah, I think to your point about the end, I would make it more ambiguous, where like the ending of the film is she's like crying on the plane, and then the stewardess hands her some sort of like card or something that says "Meet me at this location." So you don't know whether the cat and mouse game is continuing or not, right? Or what she's going to do, right? So you still have. It could be like, oh, he wants to see her, or it could be he's just stringing her along even further, right?
Because
I think that would be really
when they do
interesting.
that scene, when they do the scene where she sleeps with him finally, this is also, by the way, this is why I say the actual film is way more interesting if you just interpret it through a lens of relationships and how men and women interact and how they find their lover and what the chase is like. Because I'll give you an example. The actual scene where she sleeps with him, so remember, a famous concept between men and women is who actually decided that we were going to sleep together. And you know, a famous thing that women often say is like, if the woman has like all the lingerie underneath and she was thinking before the date that she might sleep with you at night, it's like a famous premise, right? Whereas the famous joke goes, the reason sometimes why she might not, even if in the moment she's sort of going into it, maybe she does have like her old bloomers on and she hasn't got the stuff she wants to be seen on. That's like a famous concept when men and women initially are getting together, right? So if you're going to do that kind of approach, well, when you have that scene where after they've had sex and the next morning, his like butler just brings her exactly that smoothie that she drinks, and she says, I didn't know I was a foregone conclusion. Obviously, that's actually supposed to symbolize, by the way, that this guy is winning. Like, he even did know that she would sleep with him, so she prepared it. That, by the way, would make for a brilliant callback, like I say, at the end. In fact, there's even the one, Monty, maybe the person just brings the card and then that fucking smoothie, and then that's it, and that's the end of the film, because that implies he must have some got-here plan. Yeah, go on.
Yeah, see, this is what I would have done. She's crying on the plane at the end, and then a guy with a box cutter comes in, says, "We're hijacking this plane," and it zooms out the window, and there's a well-known landmark just outside. Fuck this film. It's garbage. Like, it's absolute trash.
No,
that's how I'd end it. That's how I'd end
Dear
it.
Lord.
I don't want these characters to fucking have a happy time. You bored me in tears for 2 hours.
As they pan out, the plane flies across like the early morning skyline, and then Dennis Leary looks up at that certain landmark and goes, "God bless America."
You know what I mean? Listen, yeah, if Dennis Leary was on the plane as well, then the film would have been redeemed.
Oh my
but
God. It wasn't that bad.
It absolutely was. Like, this is just above Batman Returns for me in the pantheon of all the movies.
That is the ultimate dagger at the end. I know that he said that.
Yeah.
Hey, at least it was better than Batman Returns.
No, but like, so let's just also analyze like this film. A really bizarre. It's inexplicably popular to me. Like, it did well at the box office.
Does anybody talk about this movie anymore?
I mean, I don't know about now, but like it's well regarded. Here's the mad thing. I want you to think about this. We did Event Horizon was a terrible movie as well, right? Event Horizon's right down there in the doldrums. I've forgotten how bad it was. Another catastrophic moment of nostalgia tricking your brain. But that's a 6.8. Or think of the early cosmic horror movies we did, where everything except The Thing was a 6.8. They were also movies. This is a 6.8 movie according to IMDb. And when you consider, I think Heat was only like a 7.8. Like, I don't know. I don't know what people want out of films. It confuses me because, like I say, this could have been a very... first of all, it's a heist movie where the heist is shit. It's not particularly
there's one thing we should probably address, right, Richard? Here's the problem. Yeah. The first heist of the original painting, you can say to some degree, I can grant to Monty, that doesn't have to be too sick because it's supposed to actually be a failed heist and it's a distraction. Right? You could maybe put that angle. My problem is this. I actually don't think that final heist, aside from like the 5 seconds of, he had a distraction and people looked like him, that's it. That's all it is. It's a one-note heist. Like, as soon as you see that there's a bunch of people in bowler hats, like, actually all the tension goes out the movie for me. I now know he's just going to walk out and be fine, and that they're going to go, oh my God. And then even worse, by the way, this is actually the silliest part of the whole thing. The worst plot hole goes like this. So all he does is do another heist distraction to again do something with a painting. Like, if I'm solving the first crime, Monty, the first thing I'm going to look for, if there's any other heist, is maybe it's a distraction. You know what? That's literally his MO. That's literally what this guy does. But instead, let's just again run after the fucking, the siren over there and let him steal something over there like that. We've literally been played by the same trick twice. And even worse, by the way, because we didn't make Rene Russo a super federal investigator. By the way, the idea just a fucking detective guy is the one doing $100 million painting. And not only is he letting her, go fucking see the main suspect, but the idea as well that this bozo, that's why essentially the reason he gets away with the heist is he's just dealing with a fucking gumshoe, just some plodding twat who doesn't even know anything. The real joke is, why isn't there a super cop who's to match him? By the way, you couldn't even have done the movie. I'll tell you what's a better movie right there. Here's a better movie. It's that there is a sort of Vincent Hanna super cop parallel who's really sophisticated. He also has the thrill of the chase. He likes to go after these guys. And, maybe he doesn't even care about getting the thing. It's just about you won't get away with it. And then he uses a beautiful woman who's his accomplice as this sort of dynamic. That would be really interesting. You play it on both angles.
Do you want to know what the real loss is, Duncan? I'm going to tell you, think about what we could have had. Because originally, Paul Verhoeven was going to direct this movie.
Ooh, okay. That would be interesting.
Really?
And it was going to be, he apparently... I can't remember if he was going to direct this or a sequel to this.
Okay.
But anyway, there was definitely going to be a Paul Verhoeven take on the Thomas Crown affair. I think Charlize Theron was going to be in it and Brosnan was going to be in it.
Okay.
And it's when you think about Paul Verhoeven and how he's always made interesting movies about how sex can be used as a weapon, it can be seductive, it can be also wielded like a cudgel, and all these he's done Basic Instinct. You would have got the Thomas Crown affair through that lens. That could be a great movie. The problem is it starts with the choice of director. Once John McTiernan in. By the way, John McTiernan could do whatever the fuck he wants. He can wiretap my fucking house. I don't give a fuck. John McTiernan did Predator, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Last Action Hero, Hunt for Red October. I'll even let you have Medicine Man, you mad cunt. I fucking love him. So he's great. But unfortunately, 99 onwards, the fall off is real, and he doesn't get this dynamic when he's doing the interplay of male relationships. Think Predator, think Die Hard, with Hunt
for Red October too.
How they're interacting. Hunt for Red October. When he does the interplay of male relationships and McKee's War and all that shit, he gets that. He understands that. He can direct that intelligently. When presented with a female lead that is meant to be the perfect foil for his male lead, the direction falls apart. I'm sure it was underwritten as well, but for real, at no point. I'm never doing the Dennis Leary thing in this film with Rene Russo. I'm never going all googly-eyed, oh my God, she's such a girl boss, she's such a badass, look at that disgusting thing she's drinking. And I'm never doing that. I never feel that way. And I just think, unfortunately, if this film had just had a director that understood, not just male-women relationships, but I think also just a way to step out of the male preconception about the world, I think you get an infinitely better film. But unfortunately, we got John McTiernan's version, and it just sucks. It's just so crude is the word I would use for this. It's a movie that wants to be sophisticated but doesn't understand what sophistication is. Like how your average UK pleb, if you ask them, name me a sophisticated person, an intelligent person, they say Stephen Fry or something.
Of course,
you know what I mean?
Yes, nailed it. Yeah,
yeah. That's what this movie is for me.
Sure.
It's the Stephen Fry of heist movies. It's so banal and fucking bland.
So basically, for you, this is the stupid man's Heat. That's your premise.
Kind of. But here's, also, I will add, right, kind of interesting, right? Think about, you get one scene, right, with De Niro and Pacino, right? You get that one scene where they're having coffee with each other. Think about how epic that is when they finally meet and how you totally understand, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Like, they are the matches for each other. What if you do got him boxed in? Well, I'll put you down.
Okay.
I ain't never going back. Oh, shit. They're doing Mad Libs, acting Mad Libs. It's fucking great, right? Think about when Rene Russo meets fucking Thomas Crown, Pierce Brosnan. Like, but surely between the acting talent, you can draw me in.
I know.
I was like, I was just, I was like, that fucking meeting, mate.
By the way, you have also, Monty,
Get
done
me
yourself
out.
more favors. What you should have done is actually queue this up after a shit movie. Then it might have had redeem. You've queued it up after Heat, Monty.
know.
We just
To be
watched
fair-
I
Heat.
didn't queue it up. We agreed on this order. This was not my order.
All right, here's the premise.
You
This is
Jedi
the
mind fucked us into
Yeah,
this one.
but it's weird. Here's the problem, Monty. This is a nightmare fuel double fucking marquee. Like, if I had to watch Heat into this, I wouldn't last like half an hour into this film. Like, I've just watched Heat, for fuck's sake. And then also, by the way, the real problem as well, I agree, is the Rene Russo character just isn't, like, she just is never believable. I can never get into it. Like, if you cast it differently, like we were talking earlier, like, think about when we talked about LA Confidential. Kim Basinger does that kind of a seductress role amazingly. The joke is in that film, you even can understand why the Guy Pearce character, who logically shouldn't sleep with her, does, because it's just like, that is something, by the way, there's another thing they captured in that film about this is what they could have done in this film, but they failed to. Another thing you're trying to capture as well, by the way, because it's a literal fact of reality between men and women, is especially in person on an early date, actually the man can sometimes be the prey, can't he? Because he is so overwhelmed by his hormones and the fact he wants to sleep with this person. Everyone knows the scenario of your brains telling you don't do it. This isn't right. It's not this, but in this, but I just feel it. Oh, but look, she's so beautiful. Like you can get that part, but the problem is, like Richard said at the beginning, I'm supposed to believe that super playboy, bachelor power fantasy, Pierce Brosnan, who is doing, if you don't know, by the way, he's Irish. He's doing that amazing, like almost like received English accent he could do that does make him James Bond and really classy and sounds like he's a different person cut from a different cloth. He's doing all that. And as Richard says, he's acting brilliant. He's the best part of this film. He's acting circles around everyone. And then we're supposed to believe this is his equal who's then going to really test him. And even more importantly, this is the most important part. She's supposed to be the flame that he is the moth drawn to. That part is so implausible. It's not just the fact that he never needs to do this crime. He never needs to put himself in danger. And then also, the reason why it's so egregious to me that she is like the flame that he cannot resist is it's not plausible, except they just tell you that's what's going on. Like, she arrives, right? She never does anything impressive. But as you're saying, Richard, you're seeing it from the Dennis Leary. Oh my God, she drinks like smoothies and stuff. She bloody knows things we don't. Oh, she's got shades on and stuff. Like, that's all they need to be cool. It's like a high schooler's version of being sophisticated. And then basically, this is the maddest part to me. Even the opening scene where she meets Thomas Crown, she just walks up to him. By the way, remember, this guy is supposed to have unlimited options. He can do anything he wants. She goes up to him, just says sort of like a few sort of lines at him, throws a few lines at him, walks away. He then has to just instantly, he has to run after her. No, are you implying like I did that robbery or something? Like, what, mate? Yeah, that moment actually draws me out of his character. Like, he wouldn't do that. Why is he? You should actually have spaced that part out. There should have been a few in scenes where, there's something about her, but then next time it draws a bit more out. Because the other thing as well is, I agree with Richard, even though in the movie they take forever to get to that point, once they actually start talking, they're like instantly in like that. They're just completely like sleeping with each other. Like they go 0 to 60 when the actual relationship begins. That's the craziest part as well.
Yeah. I think the issue is that it's trying to do two things at the same time, and that's why it's unsuccessful. So one of the ways that this film is, I think, very successful is that I think it's actually very well shot, and like aesthetically, it has a lot of very beautiful scenes, and it films luxury extremely well, whether he's like on the racing catamaran.
Yeah. By the way, the idea of the bachelor fantasy, they nailed it. The island and stuff. Yeah,
the island, the catamaran. All of them sitting. They go to the Caribbean and they're sitting in his like cabana down there. Yes. Like, it is immaculately shot. In certain ways, and
even the scenes where he's on the boats and stuff like that, they do a great job with like showing the lifestyle for sure. Yeah,
the lifestyle, or when they're the glider, like this is all really well done.
Yes,
and I think like displaying the Playboy lifestyle is one of the most fun parts of this movie. But unfortunately, Thorin, having him be this much of a power fantasy, super charismatic, incredibly attractive, ultra wealthy baller is antithetical to what they're trying to do in the film, because remember, and it's also antithetical to the themes of the art that they use, because we haven't even gotten into the art pieces that they select yet, right? But the way that this is the film itself is a better piece of art is if he's just another suit who he may be rich, but he is boring on the surface and isn't doing all of this really opulent
No, I'm
and
with you.
super fun shit, because that makes his predilection for doing the heist more interesting because it's something secret. You can even have that come out in the psychiatrist scenes, for example. Unfortunately, you can't cast Pierce Brosnan in the middle of his Bond arc in a role like that, because that's not what you watch him for. You watch him for this movie. And I think when we talk about, because the central piece of art here isn't even the Monet, it's the Magritte painting, The Son of Man. Yeah. And it's a surrealist painting, so we could argue all day what the fuck it means. But to me, what's striking about that work is that it's a nondescript kind of businessman, in a suit with a red tie and a bowler. And I think one of the things that really jumps out at you is because there's an apple over his face, you realize that people who are in this business uniform all look the same, and the only distinguishing feature is their face. The problem is that Thomas Crown should be that guy. He should be the most nondescript businessman in order to make the undercurrent of this film, the cat and mouse game, his desire for a secret, exciting life, interesting. Yes. But instead, he is like
those are like all his sublimated desires.
Exactly. He's like Trump. Okay. He's like the celebrity, and it's all out there. He's out in New York Harbor. Wrecking a racing catamaran that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars while people just watch from the shore, right? He is the playboy. And I think that, unfortunately, one of the fun things of this movie is all the playboy stuff, but you can't have that and then have the artwork that's in this film make sense, because he is not the Magritte painting. He is not the faceless businessman. He is, in fact, the face of New York business. Like Trump in this period, he would be super recognizable. He's not the hedge fund guy that maybe his name, but he's not splashed all over the tabloids like this man would certainly be if he lived in New York City. People from New York, back me up on this. This guy would be everywhere in New York. He's the
he's doing like, the public thing where he's giving the painting and stuff. He's
the epitome of everything that New Yorkers love to gossip about. He's the epitome of New York glam. And so so that's the issue, is like they're trying to make I think they're trying to say certain things by using the artwork. For example, the painting that Catherine Banning likes, that he ends up stealing for her at the end of the film, is a woman standing on the shore looking at boats. Obviously a callback to looking at him racing boats earlier, but also because it's almost as though she's desiring an escape, right? She's desiring like a way out. And so I do think that there is some good symbolism here that in the artwork that is used, but it doesn't come together because the actual tone of the movie conflicts with the theme, and you can't kind of do both things at the same time, which leaves it rather unsatisfying.
I have a couple of things on this as well. Like, one thing I had a massive problem with is this. This is why I describe her as like she's just a stupid girl boss insert. Like, she is a Mary Sue. Because like early on, to make her character, like I say, the flaw they have in this film, it's actually what often happens with the Mary Sue character, is it's not that you can't have powerful women or women who are smart who could catch you, but you can't just have it as like, bad writing is you just say, this is a powerful woman who's really smart. No, you show me it. Show me it. Don't tell me. Show me it. Show me through how she engages with him and things she does and what she knows, that she's a little bit smarter. She knows a little bit more than them. She's figuring out his plan.
Even the first anecdote about her is about her dad.
Yes. What they do instead is this. She essentially just comes up to Thomas Crown and just keeps telling him, like, I know what you've done and I'm going to catch you, but never in any way presents any sort of info or angle she has. Then her whole secret plan, while she's bragging the whole time about how she's definitely going to... Essentially, here's the dumbest part, guys. We all know he's done it. He's not even pretending he didn't, but you have no way to nail him. That is why he can be swagging in your face, because you have zero way to nail him. But instead, their logic is just because she knows, it's like she's almost solved the case. So then what is her genius way to actually figure out that he did it? She just steals his keys, copies them. By the way, I genuinely could not believe that sequence where they show her drop not put them in, drop the keys into his pocket. That is so offensive that he's supposed to be some super smart and he was never going to figure that out and go, what does that feel in my pocket? Never mind. And then when he goes back, she basically just steals the painting, right? One, the cop guy tries to say this, but they've so badly set up the dynamic of how she could almost be like the cop's boss and overrule him that it doesn't work with the audience. Guys, everything she just did there means they will now never catch him for stealing the painting. Yeah. She has completely illegally done it in a way that would throw the whole case out, even though in this case you would actually have him banged to rights with the stolen thing. But then even worse, not only is that offensive, and by the way, the idea that once the cops realize she doesn't give a fuck about the criminal conviction, she just wants the painting, but let's keep working with her as the main person and letting her run this whole thing. But then the more egregious part is this is the one problem I have with this movie, Monty, is if it really was written by like a brilliant scriptwriter, it could have been really good. But again, they just decide that he's a genius. So wait a minute, his whole plan was that she was going to steal it all, and it was a secret painting under. Nah. That one, here's the thing. I actually don't mind the one at the end, Monty, with the painting like washes off or whatever. That's got something to it. This one though, where it's just the one that's in his secret place with the secret button, that was a setup too. It's like, that's like that anime shit that, I hate, Monty, where it's like, I know you thought that you did this, but I know that you know that, and you know that, I know that you know that. And so I did the one thing before you did that. It's like, again, that's like a kid's version of a very clever plot, because you're just telling me that's what you did. You did, again, when you do a brilliant plot, think about the films we've talked about, Heat, the opening scenes of The Dark Knight, right? In those movies, they don't have a guy go, fuck, that's the Joker. He just did the whole thing and that was genius. They just show you it. And then it's genius. It's well written. It fits together. So I did think that part was egregious as well. Of like, once they got to that scene, that's why I say, Monty, for me, it's just about the relationship between the man and the woman. Because as soon as you get to that scene, it's like, what even is this? Like, where's the cat and mouse game here? It's just one person getting wrecked over and over again while smarmily thinking they're winning and then in the end fall in love with the person. And then I'll give you one other detail that I think is a bonkers plot hole. This is crazy because it's an example where they show you something in the film and then don't ever let that have an impact on the rest of the film. Right, Monty, it is directly, incredibly overtly implied that she thinks when she goes to that island that he has brought the very stolen painting with him. So what does she do? Remember, her only motivation, unless she loves this man, is to get that painting. She doesn't even care about him going to prison. She herself plays a game of chicken and throws it into the fire. The one thing her character would never do. Because think about it, right? They're doing it from the relationship side of sort of like, it's like a shit test, isn't it? Will he get angry that she's thrown it in there? Will he run over and pick it out the flames? He doesn't. So it's like, ooh, the tension. But that doesn't make any sense for the overall plot. Why would she allow the painting to be destroyed? What would be the win, by the way, if at the end it's destroyed? Because to me, that implies, and this is why it's so silly, that they then think they've got tension with the ending. The implication there is that she also was willing to destroy the painting to just have a relationship with the guy. So you've now removed all tension I have for the last, 40 minutes of the movie, because I'm supposed to believe all the last 40 minutes she's tortured with like, should I, shouldn't I, can I trust him? Is he playing me? But the second that she tries that with that painting, I already know she's going to do everything he wants. He may as well have just like declared victory at that moment because he's won the second she throws that painting on there. That part's so bizarre because like I say, they do it because it's not well written as like, it's him then going, it was a different painting, but you might have destroyed a real cool painting. But then that's just another like one-upmanship. The actual core premise of she was trying to destroy the painting is such a silly one. I don't know why they put that in there. I feel like that could have been done so much more sort of gracefully or cleverly. I just don't, that's what I mean, Monty. It's like, I can see the essence of where it could have been good on these points, but like the execution sometimes just falls flat for me.
Yep.
Yeah. I will say, because, I know we're getting towards the end of time and I want to say a few good things about the film, if I can. Obviously, Pierce Brosnan, nearly called him Pierce Morgan. Don't know why that's in my brain because they couldn't be further apart as humans. But Pierce Brosnan,
that'd be a hell of a movie. This movie with Pierce fucking Morgan, that's the main guy. That'd be. I'd watch that movie. That's a fucking interesting one.
He's literally just smuggling in people's fucking mobile phones. But anyway, the Pierce Brosnan, like, legitimately. This is obviously sort of at the peak of his powers as a leading man. Yes. I mean, he's aged incredibly well when you consider he's like 70 now. And you look at him and he's like, Jesus Christ, your genetics are out of this fucking world, mate. But he's great in this. I mean, like as a suave leading man that can be playful, but also, you know, he nails it. He read the assignment. He's great. And looks great. You know, like just you definitely you can understand the male fantasy aspect of the movie by putting him there. But I'll also add as well, he did do his own stunts in that catamaran race, which, like, you
That's
know,
cool.
everyone jerks off about Tom Cruise doing it. Well, Brosnan was out there doing it before Tom Cruise has had his "I don't care if I live or die" Scientology arc. So I mean, listen, that was really good. I also agree. I think there are some really sumptuous shots in this movie. I think there's some really, you know, John McTiernan, even as a brute director, if you want to call him that, he's always had a good eye for interesting artistic shots. I mean, you know, Die Hard was full of them. Like Die Hard legitimately has some great directorial camera work in it. Think about the scene where he's in the confined space with the lighter. You come up to the coast, we'll have a few laughs. Think about the way that entire scene is shot with like the infinity fucking tube. If you know, at the top of the Nakatomi Plaza, the final shot with hands falling out the window. You don't need to do that. Could have ended up looking like fucking RoboCop with the dude with the fucking Wendigo arms like falling all the way down, right? So John McTiernan, Predator, with the mud scene and just the fire roaring, getting primal. Man, this guy does some really good camera work, and he does it here. You know, as a visual movie, it's not the best, but it's certainly well above average. And I, you know, probably. I think, if anything, there was a decent supporting cast in this movie. Never Dennis Leary. Fuck Dennis Leary. But there was a decent supporting cast. And again, I just feel like everyone apart from Thomas Crown is, like, underwritten. That's the crime. I think, did you need two cops, by the way? Because the mad thing about, see, I'm falling back into negativity. The mad thing about Dennis Leary's character, apart from the fact that he exists, is you've got Frankie Faison, who's a way better actor, and what do? They just say exposition to each other. Like the entire film, like it's like some throwback to almost like not vaudevillian, but like that old, you know, what they were doing like old movies when the talkies first come in, and just because you'd went from having frames that literally told you what had happened in the adjoining time between the scenes would flash up, and you know, and now she's off to the druggist, and what they started doing was they would put this really over exposition in the films, usually presented by either two bit part characters or comic relief characters or whatever, and it would just be there and be like, get a load of that guy, heard he's been drinking all day. They're doing that, and it's 99, and it's just like, well, Thomas Crown, he's certainly gorgeous. Well, that's nothing. You know, her dad used to be a bail bondsman, meanest bail bondsman in the world. Oh yeah, but did you know about this? I'm like, what? No one talks like this. So it's like, I mean, probably the issue is the script at the heart of the film. I think you were right to point out the dude's hackery, and I think given such a poor script, maybe everyone did fine. Maybe that is the problem at the heart of the movie. But I'll also just add as a final point, I think Rene Russo, unfortunately, is miscast and doesn't do a great job for me. And I think if you think of it as 99, I could name 3 leading women that you could immediately put in that would improve this movie. If you wanted to make no changes to the script or the performance, Uma Thurman, it's 99. She's on her shit, right? Rolling off the back of Pulp Fiction in 94. I think Uma Thurman would have knocked this out the park, actually.
I mean, Kim Basinger, like you said, LA Confidential was the same year as this movie. Like, you could absolutely see that one.
Yeah. I'll also add as well, if you want to lean into the kick-ass girl bossery, Demi Moore. Demi Moore's come off a string of movies where she's actually, you know, got that masculine femininity, if you know what I mean. Obviously, we won't talk about G.I. Jane, but, you know, you think like A Few Good Men and stuff like that. She is a believable, attractive, kick-ass girl boss that I could have seen leaning into that law enforcement part perfectly. But if you wanted to make it more playful and whimsical, Sandra Bullock would have been great in this kind of role as well. I think, like, if you wanted to make it a bit more like ew, and she's kind of surprising, you underestimate her, and then she'll do something smart. She's always played those kind of underdog roles like that. It's I don't know, it's just sad because, like, I think this is just a total failure to execute any of the premises of the film, with people probably trying really hard to spin straw into gold, and unfortunately they only managed to spin straw into copper.
I think that's fair. I mean, I enjoy this film because I think visually it's great, and I, like you've pointed out, I enjoy a lot of John McTiernan's films just purely visually.
Here's what we should do. Let me do mine, and then you do the final note. Because the problem is, this whole thing has been a riff tracks, and I know you actually enjoy the movie, so you may as well have you get to say some good things at the end and end on a good note, right? Because I'll just say this, like I said, the problem to me is, I actually think the main problem with this movie is the tone. Like, they're so caught between two paradigms. Either, for real, it should actually have been like a Nicolas Cage type person as the main person, and silly over-the-top things, and make it very frivolous and silly music, and then even have, like, you can keep it quite light-hearted with the romance, and it's just a silly, like, oh, he gets away with it, haha, like funny heist with a bit of like cleverness, or go really serious and make it like keep this actor, but then have like the female one who is the part of it, and as I say, play up the emotional aspect and show that, like, this, because this in some ways could have been like the male-female dynamic version of the male-male dynamic from Heat. Like why are these people driven to these lengths? Like, they're both revealing, by the way, through different conversations, her with Dennis Leary, who acts as her stand-in therapist, him with a literal therapist, that obviously they're people who can't trust people, and they've had some sort of a relationship in the past that's baggage, that's making them so they're kind of damaged people, but at the same time they're both mirroring there's so much you could have done with that. Like, that was there, it was right beneath the surface, you were teasing it, but then because you keep going into this silliness and this plot of the stupid heist, you're almost getting drawn out of that. In fact, there's even an angle basically where people know the concept from like the idea of the pickup world of a shit test, where someone actually sounds like they're being rude to you, in this case a woman, but they're doing it intentionally to see how will you respond, will you hold it together, will you be so. By the way, they're doing a great job showing that. They just don't make it become anything. Like, essentially the first half of the movie is her just giving this guy mad shit tests, but because he is a suave, sophisticated man in perfect control of his emotions and who can sort of choose how to respond and doesn't react, he's giving like the perfect response every time, and he's one-upping her and he's matching her. That was going somewhere, and then they just make it like she sleeps with her, then she just becomes silly and over her head in heels, and then they abandon all that stuff. That's the other thing. The dynamic and the push and pull, that part just gets thrown away for the heist plot, and does he get away with it, and where is the painting, which is like, that's the problem. To me, you pick one or the other. It's either on the surface is this heist movie and it's will he get away with it or won't he, or it's a deep film that's actually like, that's just the sort of like fucking the surface, and actually the point of it's a poignant thing about men and women and what it means to, by the way, even the idea of what it means to invest in someone, to trust them and to know that they could hurt you and wreck you and fuck you over. You could have done so much with that, but because of the way you've done the rest of the movie and the tone, you can't. And then also, like I say, the real problem is all of those scenes that Rene Russo has where she's showing how sexy and cool she is would just play so differently if it was actually just a straight fucking Hollywood dime piece. She just wasn't the right casting for that one. Like I say, the joke is when she does that scene in the dress, or even when she's just fully naked on the beach. Like, on the one hand, I'll give her props, by the way, like mad props for the willingness to actually be naked like they were in this film. They went out for it on this one. They didn't do all those silly Hollywood shots of it,
it doesn't even fit.
Covers your breath.
It doesn't.
The problem is, that's what I was going to say. You've done it, but actually it's just over the top in this. Like, I'm actually, why are they just naked on the beach? Couldn't that just be a headshot of her? Just say that. Why? Look, nice tits, but why am I seeing them actually? What is the purpose? Is this why you're in the film? What's going on here?
It reminds me of that scene with Halle Berry and Swordfish that's just like so gratuitous for no reason.
But I just realized I
marketed the film on
this. I can't believe I didn't mention this before. When they just show, listen, there's certain things I believe you cannot ever show on screen and make good. Like, I actually think, by the way, I'm not someone who's against like sex scenes as a purist, like a Puritan angle. I just think they're very hard to show and make them interesting or compelling. That scene where it's like they're having constant hot sex is like, oh, that's also pure. Again, in the 80s, Monty, you can feel with that because it's a stupid thing. This is 1999 and they're like, ha. pouring water on his head. Like, that's like some bad Wolf of Wall Street
he's-
scene or something.
He's ejaculating so much.
I
He has to have
know.
a bottle of water by the bed. Like, oh, give me some electrolytes. I'm dry. Like, what is happening? Why is this in this film?
It really is the teenage power fantasy, and then I'm just fucking her all night long. Bloody hell!
Yeah,
Oh, she's still going for it. Like,
No, but also in that scene, they're trying to say something profound because he's going, "You're a remarkable woman," and he's like dripping with sweat and oil. Like, she's worked him to his absolute limit, and she's going, you think you're getting a break? Like, fuck
exactly.
off. Like,
She's
fuck
like
all
some
of this.
sexual Svengali that's just destroyed him completely.
Again, just to compare it to Heat, I just want you to understand that when Neil McCauley finally breaks out of his spell of loneliness, there's just a nice little tenderness that after they've had sex, he just tucks her in, he leaves an immaculate, spotless glass of water by the side with a napkin around it, and just leaves quietly, you know what I mean? It's like...
Imagine if McTiernan had directed it though, and he's just like, "You're a remarkable woman. I'm never going back."
It would have been, imagine De Niro just glistening in the moonlight. Like, "You're a remarkable woman, Edie. You make me forget about Wayne Grove." Like, oh, fucking get me out. Like, so yeah, so that's another problem as well. Like, even in the moments when you want to see what the sophistication would actually translate to, like, okay, he's landed her, he's got the woman he wants. Is the sex scene in any way, shape, or form sophisticated or adult? No, it's childish, it's puerile, and as I said, I would never play this card. You know, I've been watching Lars von Trier all my life. For me to complain about gratuitous nudity is almost unheard of, right? Famously, for those who don't know, Lars von Trier did a film called The Idiots, where it was one of the first European movies to literally have a full penetration sex scene in it, but was just in mainstream cinema, and he hired pornographic actors to do that scene. And I've watched that film, and actually, within the context of the movie, makes total sense for the point that they're trying to say it. The Dogma School, go look it up. But anyway, this is gratuitous. There's no need for me to see her breasts. There's no need for me to see his ass again. Tight ass player, like, you're looking fucking great, you know, but like, there's no need for me to see any of it. And then after that scene, I'm like, okay, it's gratuitous, it's kind of shocked you out of it. I surely won't see those breasts again. Up there they are again. And well, you know, we're not going to see them. Up there they are again. And I feel so sorry for Rene Russo, because actually she is someone who, in this time period in her career, she just fell into like doing these terrible, borderline edgy, like a rom-com, but like edgier rom-coms. And think about the performance she puts in like Nightcrawler, you know, like a few years ago.
Oh, sure, yeah.
She's fire in that movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's fucking sad. So again, it might just be a set of boobs. It might just be a set of buttocks, but it's so instructive about all the problems with this film. Like I say, it is meant to be a sophisticated movie, but it has been written and directed by fucking cretins. And there's the issue.
I love that you somehow made Pierce Brosnan's ass the symbol of everything that is wrong with this film.
I mean, but it is. Think about it, right?
I
We
agree.
all would love an ass like that. That ass, like, you want. I wish I had an ass. I haven't had buttocks like
see,
that.
that's what's
20 odd
also.
years. His ass is amazing, but
Now,
it's
this
all
is right now the intro clip.
substance. It's all substance, Monty. It's all substance. When you really think about it, it doesn't matter.
Yes.
There's nothing great about that ass.
Yes.
It might not even be him. It might be a
He
stunt
needs a
double.
salt
Who
surface,
knows?
salt surface,
It's
yeah,
artifice.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
artifice.
It is, but that is one of the things that I think this movie does successfully. Is like a lot of the shots are just like Pierce Brosnan's ass. They're gratuitous, but they are sexy and they are well shot.
Yeah, gratuitous and beautiful. Yeah.
So like, I'm going to reverse this on you and say that's actually one of the aspects of this movie that I enjoy is the gratuitousness of it. And I to say some good things about this movie, I think that the end scene where everybody is dressed up like the Magritte painting and the Nina Simone Sinnerman track over the top of it is really memorable, and it's really iconic, and it's really well done. Like, it's such a fun sequence. And I think one of the things I enjoy about this movie is just that if you don't think about the massive plot holes, right, and you don't think about which is fair, You know, the criticism that this could be something that is a much better piece of art if it was better written, and if it had made the decision to strongly go into the cat and mouse game, and as Thorin says, talk about the relationships in a more deep way about men and women, and then integrate the art into that as symbolic. Like, I think it's really interesting, because the idea is that you're trying to like heist someone's affection in this movie, right? You're trying to deceive them to win something. And that theme, while it's there, is they don't really ever say anything about it, right? It's present, but there is no interesting commentary that's done on it. And they don't even do anything with the fact that, like, let's say the end reveal that the painting was there the whole time, but it was hidden, and it took this trigger in order to reveal it. That is not paralleled in the relationship in any way, which could have been, again, a very interesting, you know, commentary on the emotional cat and mouse game that they were playing. But it exists as something cool that happens visually in isolation, but doesn't connect to any themes of the film. And look, I think sometimes it's good to have movies like this because we can talk about what we didn't like and how it's not successful. And this is now one of our longer episodes because it's led to a really interesting conversation that there are some valid seeds here. They just never grow into anything.
I just want to make one more point, though, right? And this is something we need to do more of. I just want to show you who your people are, right, Monty? Because I've got an IMDb review in front of me, right? That gives this movie 8 out of 10. These are your people.
What are you talking about? I would not give this movie an 8 out of 10. I said it's a guilty pleasure.
Listen, let's just read this review, right? And let's just see. Forget all the explosions. It's by Old Crow on IMDb. Forget all the explosions, car chases, crazy villains, special effects. The Thomas Crown Affair is not an action movie. It's not even a thriller. Instead, it's a well-done cat and mouse movie that's smart, entertaining, and very sexy. If you had to use one word to describe the film, it would have to be sophisticated. The movie might appeal more to mature audiences, as both the leading man and the leading lady are over 40 years old. Pierce Brosnan could obviously do other roles besides James Bond, but the role of Thomas Crown is somewhat similar to 007. Both guys enjoy women and are very suave. Overall, Brosnan gives a solid performance and is only overshadowed by Rene Russo, who oozes sexuality and class. She is simply perfect in her role, and though she's twice as old as I am, Old Crow. What's happening there? Like, twice as old as I am.
What a weird thing to mention. Why is that part? She's twice as old as I am.
I find her a real knockout. Not only is she extremely hot, but also a very talented and charismatic actress. A perfect combination. Here it is, Duncan. The classy dance scene between Brosnan and Russo belongs to the most sexually charged scenes in history, and the following lovemaking scene manages to be both sexy and stylish. The one we've just spent all that time laughing at, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. Usually nude scenes in Hollywood movies seem somehow uneasy, but in this movie, it's done in a real style, and with sensual music, the atmosphere is simply sizzling. Who would want a disposable bimbo like Britney Spears when you could have a class act woman like Rene Russo? That's the review. One man fucking jerked it to Rene Russo and wrote that.
What's weird is that review was written.
Morons.
That review was actually written by Dennis Leary's character from the movie.
That's actually a good joke.
In character.
Old plagiarist. Yeah. Honestly, like I
the line about the dance floor, because that's the weirdest thing. It's like, by the way, I'll give you like a weird epiphany I had in life. This reminds me of one of the earliest times I went to a strip club, because I remember seeing, like, I thought it was going to be way more just actually like very like sort of obvious and meat and potatoes, like, you know, the person just comes up, do you want to dance? I couldn't believe this silly artifice where they're pretending they're like, no, I'm an exotic dancer and, you know, this is art and stuff. And I used to think, like, no one's here for that. Like, what? And then I realized that is, again, a stupid man's idea of sophistication, Richard, is that you don't just have the tits out, you have like a feather boa behind you. Like, that makes it classy to them. Like, that's that.
Yeah,
what
literally.
There
it
is
becomes
exactly
art once the feather is inserted.
Not the joke is that this guy thought this was some fucking like high level functioning piece of art. Like, holy shit, okay, mate. Like, even if you like it, surely it's just like harmless fun, like Monty's saying. Surely that's what you enjoy.
Imagine being that like person's girlfriend, like it's Valentine's Day. Like, you know, can you imagine the absolute shit he serves up as the idea of romance?
And by the way,
yeah,
I think you guys touched on this earlier.
People who like this movie are bad.
Except you, Monty. You've kept you, of course. Richard did this little classic. If people don't know, Richard is the sort of person who will just go, everyone who does actually be killed. And then there'll be an awkward silence when one person on the couch is sort of like, but I'm like that. And then they'll be like, not you guys, of course.
Yeah, never you. I'd save you. I'd spare you.
Exactly.
I learned it from Stalin. Great guy.
And also, I think part of the issue is that, again, it's after Heat, as you guys mentioned, but it's also sandwiched between, Heat and Dog Day Afternoon. If we had watched this in the middle of our 90s action arc, I think the tone of this conversation would be very different.
But we loved Con Air. This is the thing. It's like, I'm not.
I thought it was okay. You love Con Air.
Yeah, again.
No, but actually, that nails it, Monty. That's actually what I was saying about the problem. That's why I said earlier, if they actually committed and this was like a Nicolas Cage project and it was just silly, I could forgive all the stupid initial heist with the remake. That plays into a Nick Cage movie. But that problem is that, like, you're making a statement by putting that character of the fucking Pierce Brosnan one in. You're trying to say I'm making it a real movie. It's supposed to have some gravitas or some sort of like a weight to it. So my problem is it's between the two all the time for some reason.
I think it would fail if it was that kind of movie. I subscribe to this could have been a very interesting commentary about heisting affection and like the relationship between men and women. And it could have, and people who are kind of emotionally reserved or reluctant or have a lot to lose. I think it could have been really cool. And so
I even thought, Monty, for real, I thought that's even what they were hinting at in the opening scene. The opening scene is him in a therapist's office, and then he's sort of talking about the idea of like the notion. It's almost like the idea of like, why does he still do it all? What's he out there for? Isn't there some line like to flaunt society's conventions or something? So I thought like, it's going to be some big thing about like the idea of like, why would a super wealthy person do these things and take these steps? But then they don't actually really ever get into that. That's kind of just like that was just treated as something to open the movie with for some reason.
Yeah.
Because like you say, Monty, there could have been even, the fact it's in New York, you could have even made it some sort of a metaphor for why do people who have seemingly everything still get obsessed? Why are they driven to do that? You could have had so much, you could have sort of explored of that, I feel like, but you never did. You just did the rest of the movie at that point.
Yeah. And like, it's worth putting out there that I just think that there's something very sticky about the concept of this movie. And even though it's not done very well in the original and it's not done very well in the remake either, we still have people who are trying to remake this film further. Apparently, Michael B. Jordan, who would be maybe very good in this, is interested or has expressed interest in remaking this for another time. And like, I wouldn't hate watching
make sure you get an ass scene in this movie.
That'd be glorious. Michael B. Jordan's remake where Sydney Sweeney is a genius girl boss insurance person who's definitely on a sophisticated level trying to catch him as Amy Schumer in the gender swapped Dennis Leary character watches on. There you go. There's a fucking nightmare quotation for you right now.
Why are you showing me this? True detective, like, get me the fuck out.
But I think there's something really cool about the premise of this story that sticks with you and is very memorable. And like, I hope that they remake this and do it right, because I think the good version of this movie could be really good. And obviously this isn't it, but I still think it's kind of a fun, mindless ride that I enjoy certain parts of. And I hope we get to see another iteration of it in our lifetimes. That's all I'll say.
I would just like to say from the bottom of my heart, fuck Dennis Leary. That's my final comment.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope the one takeaway from this, 2-hour fucking rant about this dumb heist movie just is fuck Dennis Leary, fuck everything he does, fuck him forever. He's plagiarist scum. Fuck Dennis Leary. So yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Duncan. Glad you got that in.
Well, that's it. See you next week for Dog Day Afternoon.